Alright, so yes, as we approach the final session of our event, we are delighted to put the lens on a topic that is at the forefront of our industry: digital news publishing, opportunities and challenges. This session will explore the dynamic landscape of digital news, particularly focusing on the significant shift from traditional print to digital platforms. As consumer preferences increasingly shift towards digital media, this transition offers tremendous opportunities for growth and innovation. We have assembled a panel of distinguished experts who are leading the way in this transformation, ready to share their valuable experiences and successful strategies. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our session chair, Mr. Sanjay Sindhwani, Chief Executive Officer of the Indian Express Digital. Welcome, sir. So, yes, now it's time to welcome our distinguished panelists. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Director, Digital Business of Mathrubhumi Printing and Publishing Company Limited. Give it up for Mr. Mayura Shreyams Kumar. So, yes, ladies and gentlemen, now I would like to call upon Mr. Navaneeth, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Hindu Group. Welcome. So, yes, last but not the least, we are about to welcome the CEO of the printers Mysore and editor Deccan Herald. Give it up for Sitaraman Shankar. Welcome. So, yes, I'm sure the session is going to be really insightful. So, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And last but not the least, this session, we'll try to make it interesting. I know we are all tired. So the topic for today is digital publishing in India, challenges and opportunities. And I think we have a very esteemed panel of very experienced people coming with a lot of experience in both print and digital. So I'll start maybe with a quick round of introductions where everybody can tell us about what businesses they are into and their journeys, and then we'll get into the opportunities and challenges. So over to you, Mayura.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm predominantly from Kerala. I'm one of the directors of a company called Mathrubhumi. We've been in the industry for 100 years. We are a pan-media company. We do everything. We have newspaper, radio, TV, digital, of course, digital news publishing. We're into music. And publishing books as well. So it's and events. So it's a pretty wide portfolio. We're one of the largest groups in Kerala. And I predominantly take care of FM, like our publishing business, and digital news with social media, and also, the music business is the other space I look into. Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Navaneeth. I have the privilege of working for the Hindu Group as its CEO. I have been in this role, in this innings for 5 years. I also worked with, apart from publishing, I worked in radio and broadcasting and in a media agency as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shankar. So I wear two hats at the Printers Mysore. I am the CEO of the company, and I edit the English paper of the company, which is the Deccan Herald. We also have a big Kannada title called Prajavani. We have the digital side of the business. We have video and a few other things, education, small education business. So I've been doing this role for 5 years on the CEO side and 6 years on the editor side.
So I'm Sanjay. I work with Indian Express. I'm the CEO for digital. And I started my career in print on the editorial side and then moved to digital, set up economictimes.com, worked in Times Group for almost 24 years, 2 stints of 12 years each, television for a year. And last 5 years, I've been with Indian Express. And I launched ET Prime, which is a subscription product of the economictimes.com. And then I launched Indian Express behind subscriptions. So that's what I've been doing. And now to the panel, basically, I will again kind of take turns and we'll probably start from the other side. Maybe, we can start with Shankar on basically what are the challenges that you see in your digital business today? The key challenge that you see, maybe one or two, and then we'll kind of go around and
Okay, I
have
have
a
more than
discussion
one or
about
two,
it.
so you'll keep me to two, is it? Okay. No, I'm just joking. So 2 challenges. I think
Yeah.
one is that traffic is plateauing. We have, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've multiplied both page views and visitors by about 10 times, but now we find that it's getting more and more difficult to move the needle on this for various reasons. And the second one is, of course, the ad environment is changing with this long-awaited third-party cookie business. So we are preparing for that, and we are preparing for subscriptions.
Navaneeth.
Yeah, I think the biggest opportunity in my mind is the subscription economy. I think digital subscriptions as a revenue stream is a big opportunity. We have just scratched the surface. A lot more to do, but very exciting. In terms of challenges, there are many. But if I were to boil it down to a couple of core issues, I think organizational structure is a big challenge. I don't think we fully understand it. Culture is a big challenge because you're trying to run 2 different organizations under the same brand. Each of it needs different speed, different agility, and a different mindset. And because you struggle with structure and you struggle with culture, your big challenge is talent. Are we able to attract the best non-journalistic talent for our digital journey? I think we are better off than we were 2 years ago. But if I were to honestly answer, we still are on a 6 on 10 on that.
Great.
It's
Mayura.
very interesting that you brought that up because I was also going to bring about talent when it comes to talking about challenges. See, technology is ever evolving, and I think for you to be agile in that space also sometimes talent-wise is a little difficult, especially where I'm from. Nobody wants to live in Kerala, especially people who work in tech. So I don't know why, but anyway, that's definitely one space that I found a little bit of a challenge to keep at it with tech. And I'm just saying that because you're predominantly content creators, right? So that's one space. And definitely the kind of pie of revenue that we also receive is a very, very minuscule percentage when it comes to, the big players like Alphabet, etc. The kind of pie that they share versus what we share is a huge difference. So as Navaneeth said, subscription is definitely the way to go, and definitely it is an economy that we must tap, and we must tap quickly as well. So this is what I would stick to.
Okay. So Mayura, I think you've touched upon a very important point, which is revenue. Now, do you think revenue is a problem because of the pricing environment that we live in? Because when you look at the print business, basically you decide your pricing, right, based on the reach you have, and it's largely a monopolistic kind of a reach when it comes to a newspaper, because a typical household will get one newspaper. But digital people keep hopping from one platform to the other, and therefore the access is very easy. And the pricing is based on auction mechanism, demand and supply. And while Shankar mentioned that traffic is plateauing, but it was growing, it's grown almost tenfold. So was it a demand supply issue where pricing was a challenge and therefore revenues were not flowing in? Or is it that now that the supply side, the demand side has kind of plateaued and you're not seeing growth, prices will catch up in the future? How do you see that playing out?
To be honest, definitely the pricing does play a role over here, but I think how you will, how you succeed and where you stand with the kind of, it will definitely be the quality of audience that you engage with. So more than pricing and all of that, I feel like to make sure you get that quality of audience always engaging with you, so you at least get better prices. And I also don't see a standardization here, like even with the newspaper, with the newspaper industry, whether there are bodies and there are, even with competitors, there are conversations at least happening regarding pricing and regarding where you stand with that. At least you have those conversations. Here, I don't think we have these kind of conversations for us to even...
Navaneeth, you want to add to that?
I mean, I slightly disagree with the premise of the question. I don't think the issue is very different in the newspaper business and in the digital business.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue of pricing on digital is a hangover of our approach to the physical business. Even in the heydays of print, and by the way, print is still strong. A lot of people read newspapers. We make a hell lot of money on newspaper business. So print is thriving, active, alive. But if you look at the rest of the globe, and if you look at India, India is one of the lowest priced newspaper markets, compared even to a Sri Lanka or a Pakistan or Indonesia. And it worked well when you built business around advertising use cases. So you said, I'll build my business around aggregating eyeballs and I will monetize it through advertising. It worked for a while. It doesn't work as well today. So what we did in the print business is we gave away too much for too little for too long. When you give away your content for too little for too long, you don't blame the world, you have yourselves to blame.
Yep.
And part of our resistance to pricing on digital comes from the approach we took to the traditional media.
Right.
So they're related. It takes courage to price. And the courage comes from the conviction in your content. Now, if you don't believe in your content, if you don't believe your content is worth paying for, the world will not raise its hand and say, I will solve your problems. It is our problem to solve, and it's high time we did something about it.
Right.
Start
Shankar.
with it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually agree. I mean, in fact, this is a bit of a hobby horse, this pricing thing. We feel very strongly that content deserves to be priced better. So we are at 7 rupees on weekdays and 8 rupees on weekends, which is a lot more than one of our bigger rivals down the road. So we don't want to make the same mistake that the industry has made for a long time in digital. We are new to the subscription game. We have not started yet. So we should be there about 3 months down the line. We should have a paywall of some sort. We might decide to give up on some volumes for a better price, and that might result in ROI being pushed by a few months, but so be it, I think.
So, speaking of pricing, and while you are selling your cover prices, or all of you are saying is on the higher side, aggressive side, as compared to your competition, but the bulk of the money still comes from advertising. So your cover price is still not covering for the entire cost of the paper that you're distributing. Digital pricing is typically at a discount to the cover price, and digital ad pricing is also at a much lower discount based on auction mechanism. So do you think in the next 5 years or 10 years, we'll see a reversal where digital will be priced at a premium, both on the advertising side and the subscription side, than what the print charges today? Do you think that's a likely scenario, or that's unlikely to happen? Or the cost dynamics don't even warrant it?
I think digital certainly yes. So if you look at the physical publishing business, for every single large player in this country, the percentage of reader revenue, which is cover price revenue, to the total pie has gone up. Right? What used to be sub 20% today is probably at a 27, 28%. And that's happened because of two things. One is the rate of advertising revenue growth has slowed down. Second, cover prices have gone up, and so you are in a reasonably healthy place, but still not enough. We should have the courage and the conviction to price the products at double digits in every single market. Digital is we are already there with respect to certain players. For instance, we believe subscription is the way to go, and we have been on this journey for a while. Today on digital revenues, reader revenues account for half our total revenues. And I think that's a healthy place to be in. I'd be very happy if a few years down the line, both revenue streams grow substantially. But the ratio of reader revenue total is between 50 and 55%, which is a healthy place to be in.
Sanjay, as things stand, obviously it is much more desirable for ad revenue to grow faster, because a lot of it is profit, whereas circulation comes with, as you correctly said. But I think the whole point of all this, and the fact that we struggle so much with technology changes in digital, is that the positive spin-off here is that it is moving the pendulum towards better journalism, which is something which we know and we've been doing for all our lives. Yep. So it's something which we can control. So if we can produce better and better stuff and let the technology buy in the technology, or spend a fixed amount, we know what we're going to spend on the technology, I think we're in a fairly good place. It's a difficult proposition currently, but I think in the longer run, the more we invest in our journalism, the better it will be. I don't know if that's universally accepted or acceptable view, but that's what we think.
Okay. So I think everybody's of the view that advertising and subscriptions are two critical revenue streams to provide for the digital news business to become sustainable. What about content commerce and ONDC as a option, to increase revenue per user? At the end of the day, I think that's the metric that matters. That what is the revenue per user you're making, which in the ad business is very low. With subscription, it kind of takes a jump, and content commerce can probably add a layer to it. So, are any of you thinking about getting into the content commerce space, or are you already in that space?
Ma'am, I agree with you that advertising and subscription are not the only revenue sources, right? So there's affiliate revenue, there's syndication revenue, there's content commerce, all those pieces you spoke about. While we are focusing on some of them and progressed reasonably well on some pieces. And there's also a lot of value in our archival content. Now, for instance, what is the difference between somebody who's been around for a long time and somebody who does news really well even if they're young? I think people who are in this business are sitting not just on years of history. For instance, we are 145 years old. So one way to look at it is we have 145 years of history. The other way to look at it is we have 145 years of context. And what is the role of content really? The role of content is to make sense of what's happening today using the lens of yesterday and paint a picture to your consumers of what the implications of the choices we make as a society today or on the society we bequeath to our children and grandchildren. So there's a lot of money to be made with archival content. Do we do a good job of it? No. Do we recognize that there's a lot of potential revenue in that? Yes. So archival content, affiliate marketing, syndication, and the stuff you mentioned are all good revenue streams. Some of them we have followed well. We understand that space well. We have put structures to it. And revenue never follows if you don't have people. So for instance, often in meetings we keep talking, saying we should make money off this. And 2 years later, you'll be talking about the same thing, simply because you haven't mandated anybody. So unless there's a resource who's dedicated to chasing that, and you should invest. So without investment, without resourcing, without a proper vision, these will stay as revenue streams on Excel sheets, but will never happen. Out of the 4 or 5 things we spoke about, we have made progress on 3. 1 or 2 we are exploring, but I believe there's huge potential in them.
Shankar, you want to add to that?
Okay, just to add to that, I think the specific case which I think prompted the question is this nice tie-up between Dainik Jagran and the ONDC, which is a fantastic idea, I thought, for bringing SMEs into and utilizing, tapping into a huge amount of wealth which lies with the SMEs, bringing them on board, playing your role as a media player and making your money off it. I think it's an excellent idea. As Navaneeth said, and I would put it a bit more crudely, you're throwing a lot of mud at the wall and seeing what sticks sometimes. We do that. Obviously, the value at risk has to be fairly low because the print business is no longer, I think, true of all of us, with maybe some exceptions where the print business is not generating huge surpluses that can be invested in digital. So you've got to be a bit, you can't throw as much mud as you want. So you've got to be a little judicious with it. But look at video monetization. As a non-TV, as a media group which doesn't own a TV channel, the news video that we produce doesn't really make us much money because the volumes are not that high. So what is the answer? Possibly pivoting to branded content videos. So that sort of thing. For example, we will try it. I mean, I'm fresh off a meeting this morning where we're talking to people here. We could look at affiliate marketing, as he said, a variety of things, news, video podcasts, newsletters, and the ONDC space. I mean, we haven't really looked at it long enough or hard enough. But before we got there, we were looking at the SME space for maybe doing very much the kind of services which are being envisaged under this tie-up. We didn't actually move on it, but it's certainly worth thinking about.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of, what with us, we've not experimented in that space yet, but definitely looking into it. I don't, for us, because I take care of the books business as well, that's another space that I look for growing revenues, because let it be with a lot of audio content with books, it's actually doing pretty well at the moment. So I look at all of the kind of verticals that we have and see what more we can produce for digital also through these teams. And I did this experiment where my FM station started producing audiobooks, which looked promising for us, and it is actually growing as well for us. So we do, I like to experiment also with what we have within, and look at sources, and even in terms of events also helps with that
So Sanjay, if I may add,
yeah, sure.
I think you have been in this business for longer than all of us put together have been. So it will be nice to get your perspective. So if I may request you to answer your own questions in addition to us,
sure.
I think it will add enormous value.
No, thank you. So I think you need to have multiple revenue streams. I think that's a given, because I don't think any particular one stream will add value. I think the other part which we were discussing before the panel started is that when we get into a subscription business, and that's very important, we actually start learning so much more about our audiences when we try to sell to them, that it will have a multiplier impact on our advertising businesses. So I think the challenge that we are facing today is we are dependent on platforms who use our data to target our audiences on our platform and then give us a part of the share of revenue that they take from advertisers. As we build our subscription businesses, as we build our technology stacks which allow us to target, understand, and map our users, we create logins, we identify the users more clearly across devices. I think the ability of digital publishers to deliver value to advertisers will multiply manifold, and it will create a win-win ecosystem. The second thing I believe is, in a few years, and I very strongly believe in it, I think each one of us will have a few million dedicated paying customers, which will not only add value to the bottom line, but then whatever initiative you do, whether you do e-commerce. Because with a platform like ONDC, what it does is, you don't have to build an entire platform to do e-commerce. You just need to create a front end where you're bringing in the audience. It's a storefront where the customer comes in. He can choose to buy from whosoever is mapped there, because that ecosystem is independent. The delivery ecosystem is independent. The payment ecosystem is independent. So I don't need to become an Amazon to get into e-commerce. I don't have to become a Flipkart. I can be what I do as a publisher, attract audiences, and then create products which they can sell, buy through my platform. I think that's another big opportunity. And of course, I think Navaneeth mentioned a few more, like content syndication, especially with GPT, going in, and if search goes generative way, then the search engines will need content from trusted authoritative sites which are producing content at scale on a daily basis. Otherwise, how will those engines learn? And I think newspaper publishers, media publishers are best placed to supply that continuous stream of content which will provide learnings to these engines to remain current and updated. So I think that could be a very interesting revenue stream going forward. Of course, it will bring down the amount of traffic we get from search today, but I think these are vanity matrices when we go and say, I have 200 million reach. Bulk of that reach comes to you once in a month. Your core audience is about 30-40% of that total reach you have. And I think that's good enough to be monetized on a repeated basis. I think these are the few areas which I believe are very important. And I think I'll touch upon what Shankar said, which he probably meant is not so good, but I am actually reading it the other way. I'm saying it's a blessing in disguise that the print is not able to throw money at digital at the scale, where you can do a lot of experiments. I think that will entail you remain more focused. If you try to walk on crutches, you will always be dependent on crutches, and that's how I see the print funding to be, rather than trying to be on your own. And I say that as experience. I come from times where I spent 24 years, and where the print has thrown money at digital, by the sackful. And I have seen that those businesses are still not sustainable. When I came to Express, and the reason I came to Express was that Anand Goenka, the ED, had shared the P&L with me, and I was surprised. It was such a frugally run business and profitable, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the accounts that I saw. And I said, look, this is exciting. And I could foresee 7 years ago, when I took up this offer, that the future of digital has to be frugal. Because we had already seen that happen in the US and Europe, where a lot of print businesses, traditional media had shut down and you could not live the way you were living with the print margins. So for me that was a big kick in coming into Express and learning how to run the business frugally. And actually Vineet Jain asked me in my exit interview, why are you moving? And what can I give you, to retain you? I said, you can't give it to me because I want to learn how to do the business the frugal way. And you just don't know how to do it the frugal way. So I think that's the important part. And I think we'll take a little digression. I think I have this thing. So I think, how many of you are marketers over here from the advertising community? Okay. How many of you are aware of the new Supreme Court rule which says that in the very near future, all ads that you submit will need to have a self-certification? Okay. So let's touch upon that because I think it's going to have a big ramification on the business. I don't think enough thought has gone into that order, but it's a Supreme Court order, so I think, and there's a deadline looming. I think 18th onwards we have to start adhering to it. So Mayura, you want to start on that? How do you see that impacting you and your business, on the digital front, print front? Because that is all encompassing. We could look at it from an overall perspective rather than just purely a digital perspective.
I think it's going to affect us. First of all, you wait for your ROs, and now you've got to wait with this, with this certificate as well. I think the process is just much more tedious right now. Another space which was quite blank is the categories that they had, mentioned. Only personal and classifieds don't need it, but all the other categories do. It was intended to help, but now it's become very, very, confusing. Like everything, any communication you give, you've got to have this. I think when we were talking as well, you had added an insight saying that how do you do content marketing now? Do you have to give every piece of content out there? It's a very, very serious rule. I think the business that we could have gotten is going to be delayed for sure with this process coming in. And yeah, I think it's a huge slap on the face, to be honest.
Navaneeth, how do you see your company?
So I'll borrow something from Sanjay. Sanjay and me are part of the Digital News Publishers Association. And Sanjay had something to say on this, on our group. And it's right. I think what started as a health advisory to protect consumers somewhere morphed into an all-encompassing. I think the scope has extraordinarily widened. While protecting the consumer is important, I don't think it's implementable in digital, especially on the programmatic side. Direct you could do to a certain extent. Far more easier to do in a publishing setup. And generally in the publishing business, the code of conduct that we follow is quite stringent. So you try and avoid that. I think this has far-reaching implications, not just for business, in terms of execution itself. And I would echo what we had discussed earlier, that industry bodies should get together, represent, protect both the interests of the industry as well as the consumer. I think a middle path is required and industry should strive to do it. In the current form, I honestly don't know how we will even implement it.
Shankar, you want to add to that?
I'd agree with Mayura in that it's too wide-ranging. It could have been a lot narrower. It's also pretty much unworkable, I think, in my humble opinion, in this current form. It has problems in print as well, as Navaneeth said, maybe less so in print, but definitely there. And when you're fighting for revenue, last thing you want is your ROs to be delayed and to wait for the certification. So I think some way will have to be found. I think it's going to be a problem for everyone, many people in the room as well as for the publishers, the intermediaries.
Okay. So I think the session before probably discussed this, but I think if we don't touch upon it, it will not be full conversation. So third-party cookies, we've been hearing that they are about to go away for a very long time, and I think the new deadline is first quarter of 2025, calendar year 2025. So what steps have each one of you taken, and what impact do you anticipate of that change on your business?
I think there's a bit, I don't know how many people watch Hindi movies and how many people watched. There's this movie called Kudagawa where Amitabh Bachchan and Sridevi, and an ongoing dialogue that Sridevi keeps saying is, wo aayega, wo aayega, wo aayega. Arey bhai, kab aayega? Interval ho gaya. So this cookie demises, wo aayega, we've been listening for a long time. My sense is it will happen. It's not a question of if it will happen, it's a question of when it will happen. I think each of us have our own mechanisms to deal with it in terms of getting more people to register with us, collecting it. I think we're in a fairly good position in terms of contextual targeting if and when it happens. But there's a limit to how much data you can collect. There's a limit to what kind of cohorts you can make. But it's something that will impact everybody. And I think the true shape of what will happen, we probably know 60% of the answer. What we don't know is the 40% we don't know.
Right.
That will play out as it happens. Large primary implications are you need to have more data, you need to do it. You need to do it responsibly, because along with this there is regulation, and all this regulation is for the good. Indian regulation is going to get stronger. My sense is it will make advertising expensive.
Okay.
I think it will make digital advertising more expensive. And I dare say one good impact of this could be ad fraud on digital could come down,
Okay.
which is good for the ecosystem.
Right.
But are we prepared? Yes. Are we well prepared? I don't know.
Yeah.
And the true nature of what you need to be prepared for will happen only when you live through it.
Sure. I think I'll come back to you. Let's take quick inputs from Mayura and Shankar and then come back to you on why you believe prices should go up or prices will go up because of this, because I think that is music to all publishers' ears.
So obviously this is something that, since we are a little behind the curve in the subscription business, it gives us an opportunity to think this through afresh. We have single sign-ons implemented across the properties in the group. We will be collecting data. We think that we can get a fair amount of data. It is still going to be difficult to match the system that existed come 2025. But yeah, I mean, I think what could happen, the risk of what could happen is that yields could fall if we have an open web. So there is a lot at stake for us in getting the first-party data in there. Another approach we could look at possibly is for medium-sized publishers such as ourselves to get together. I mean, if you have 3 or 4 of them, to kind of share first-party data. I don't see that happening very much. I think there has been some thinking around it, but possibly that's a way out. I mean, we do it on the sales side. For example, the second-rank players, us, Prajavani, and a few others in the south are selling digital inventory. Maybe we could look at that approach in data as well.
Mayura?
Yeah, I think they've covered most of that. So.
Okay. Since this is a Deccan conference, so let me ask the 3 of you, and here I can kind of excuse myself. How do you see the digital market in South being different from the rest of the country? Because you must be selling all across. So there's perhaps also my learning that, how does this market behave differently from maybe the rest of India? Because typically digital is more Delhi and Bombay, right? So what is your experience of the southern market? What kind of innovation adoption do you see which is differentiated from what you get from maybe clients in Bombay and Delhi?
I mean, actually, they both are better placed to answer it.
Thank you for...
Yeah, but I'll go first so you look better. I think that digital capitals are Delhi and Bombay is not entirely true. For instance, if you look at any news publisher, at least in the news ecosystem, the biggest market for most of us, at least in the English space, is Bangalore. Bangalore is the biggest traffic market for most of the publishers I know of. You would know Indian Express numbers. Including us. And the interesting question to ask is, why is Bangalore the biggest traffic market for all of us? Does it reflect something about Bangalore from a tech or adoption point of view? Obviously, tech adoption is great there. And Sanjay, you should spend a lot of time in Tamil Nadu, in Chennai. Go to some of these startups here. Phenomenally good work at the back end is happening in the tech parks, in the startup ecosystem. Extremely robust investor ecosystem here. Even if you go to any road, Coimbatore, Madurai, a lot of things are happening. So it's a vibrant market. But coming back to why I think Bangalore is the largest market for all of us, not only do stories about Bangalore do well nationally, I mean, national content gets consumed a lot in Bangalore. And stories that happen in Bangalore do well nationally. And I was surprised when I first saw this data. And my hypothesis, and I could be wrong, is Bangalore today is to India what the US was for people from Tamil Nadu and Telugu in the 90s, where you had somebody living there. Today, all of us have somebody who lives in Bangalore, because a lot of it is, of course, software and tech. So to an extent, what impacts Bangalore impacts India. And that is my hypothesis for why, and without exception, Bangalore is the largest market for most of us. So after a bad answer, we will go to the good answers.
I think that was an excellent answer. I think I'll just add a bit of, for us, in fact, Bangalore is slightly underperformed, maybe relative to expectations over the last 2 years. Possibly because we haven't, it's more about fewer clients at higher value, and we haven't probably tapped the right clients. But I would agree with the broad points that Navaneeth makes, that it is a very juicy. I'm talking of revenue. Traffic, yes, definitely. Revenue has been a little tepid, so we are trying to fix that because it's key to us, and it's in print it is by far our biggest, the goose that lays the golden eggs. So it should reflect in digital, which it is not doing at the current time.
I'd like to talk more from an audience point of view when it comes to, Kerala that way is a pretty unique market as well. Even for us, obviously, it's print that brings in the money as of now and not digital. The kind of attention that people give to the kind of content you give in Kerala is very, very, it's a highly sensitive market also sometimes. If you do put up something that is misinformation or something that even there's a small mistake, it's an audience that is very, very receptive, and they need the good content. They need good news out there. Very, very informed and very knowledgeable audience that we have over there. For us, even when we sometimes do content marketing, it's like hell for us sometimes. We have to kind of face that backlash from an audience perspective as well. So yeah, it's I think I'm just talking about Kerala because I have a little bit more knowledge from that space. So yeah, very, very intelligent, knowledgeable, and can't.
So I think I can share some ideas from our own stable because we run IE Tamil, we run IE Malayalam, and we run Indian Express. And what we have seen, and you're right, Navaneeth, that Bangalore is the biggest market as far as our English brands are concerned. And not only English, actually, even in Jansatta, which is a Hindi brand where you would not expect Bangalore to be a key market, it is amongst the top 3. So Jansatta Bangalore is like amongst the top 3. And I think almost 3 months out of a year, it tends to be on the number 2 slot. So you're quite right that, stories about Bangalore and Bangalore readership is pretty kind of digital savvy. And I can share information, and it goes back almost 10, 15 years. When I was in ET, Bangalore was the only bureau where if a story appeared in print and digital did not carry it, the reporter will call you. Right? Because the reporters here knew while they are writing for print, their readers are digital. And they didn't bother about the story coming in print because what would happen is the Bangalore edition would print the story, Delhi edition would not, digital would pick up the Delhi or the Bombay edition as prime, where the story would appear per day later. So the reporter would call up and say, boss, meri story kahan hai? Because he had to send the link to the person he had interviewed or met or whoever was covered in the story. And nobody was reading the newspaper. So I think that probably explains why Bangalore was and still is ahead of the curve in terms of market penetration on the reader side. I think on the revenue side, what we have seen is there are more B2B clients than B2C clients. And we see our IPs business doing much better in Bangalore than our consumer business. In terms of content, what we have seen is, and especially between Tamil and Malayalam, I don't understand either of the languages, but I keep asking the teams, the genres that do well in Tamil Nadu are very different from the genres that do well in Kerala. So, while they are 2 adjacent states and sitting, 2,000 kilometers away, you would assume that it's all the same. It's actually not. Very different kind of content genres work. In Tamil Nadu, it's more money and finance and investments and business and entrepreneurship that works in Tamil. But when you go to Malayalam, it's fiction does very well, literature, art does very well, I think the common threads between the two is, of course, the cinema part, the entertainment part, which probably runs across the entire South very strongly. That's a common part. Other than that, I think for us, the big surprise was that, Hindi doing decently well in Bangalore. Beyond Bangalore, it doesn't, and that's why we actually never launched the Kannada edition, because between English and Hindi, we were getting a lot of coverage. So we probably never felt the need to, launch a special edition in Kannada. Coming back to subscriptions, because everybody said, you have plans to be there, and two of us are already kind of ahead in that journey. What is the biggest challenge you see in growing that business from where it is today? Let's say if you have to go 5x from there, and if you have to launch over the next 3 years, what are the critical challenges that you think are you're going to face?
I think staying the course. I think our initial calculations show a return on investment in about 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said, and I take your point about being crutch free, but in a practical environment where print is still the cash cow, it is a lot to ask of the board and all that to keep it going for 2 years. And the other point, I think, and I've heard Navaneeth speak about this, so I'll still march on him on this, on churn, which we anticipate will be quite, we're very early in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Anticipate that will be quite an issue going forward.
Please, what is the biggest challenge you're facing today? One is internal, that you can manage. Second is external. So if you can just, break it down into internal and external, that will help.
I think it keeps changing over time. But a big challenge is to get people to pay. We have been on this journey for a long time. I'm very happy with the progress we have made. And I believe if somebody can succeed in this, we have a good chance of succeeding. And so far we have been successful. The first challenge is to get people to pay, because you're operating in an environment where much of it is still free, which again goes back to the premise of giving away too much for too little for too long. As serious news players recognize the importance of subscription economy and go after that, everybody will be better off. Today the question the consumer is asking is, why should I pay? But if the industry could flip that question to whom should I pay for, all of us are in a better position. So that's the first challenge. The second challenge continues to be retention. While we have made good progress with increasing retention, if you don't get retention right, and the way to get retention right is to get engagement right. And I have lots of friends here from the banking industry. We could learn from them in terms of how to do engagement better. If you do engagement better, you will do retention better, and you're not running harder to stay at the same place. The third challenge, especially for legacy players, is what do you define as short-term in this business, and what do you define as long-term business? And that's the challenge a typical startup also has. And this business is a startup business despite you being in the business of news for 100+ years. There are times in your life, and Sanjay, all of us would have gone through this, when 3 years look long-term, 2 quarters down the line, 3 quarters look like long-term. So how do you balance short-term and long-term? How are you able to build an culture of experimentation when you run a business for 100+ years based on a set of rules which work well and stand the test of time? These are some of the challenges. None of them unsurmountable. So if you ask me, are there challenges? Yes. But if you ask me, am I bullish about building subscription revenues from an Indian audience, international audience? Absolutely yes. And we will get it right.
I completely agree with Navaneeth here. Firstly, getting people to pay for the content is, I think, even if you have a really strong brand name and you have a good, strong value system that people look at you a certain way, I definitely am struggling with understanding, okay, are they going to? Because there's so many entertainment options as well. So it's only this much money a person would spend per month on subscriptions. So you have to be the choice you have to be the first, you have to be the first name that pops up in a person's head when it comes to, I want to consume good news. So definitely, and retention as well. These are the 2 points mainly that I thought.
Yeah.
And I think pricing also, in a way.
Okay.
How do you hit this market right with the pricing, especially for regional players with Malayalam, the market, like how do you hit that sweet spot with pricing, which is beneficial for both the publisher and...
So hypothetically speaking, if you were to launch subscription, like say next month, would you go with the aggressive penetrative pricing, or would you go for the premium, skimming kind of a strategy?
I definitely would not go for the aggressive penetrating pricing to begin with. See, even with the newspaper industry, by the end of the day, people don't have the habit of paying for the content part of the newspaper. You know what I mean? Yeah. Per day. It's definitely costs us way more than that to, make the content per day. So if you go very aggressive, I think, like what was said earlier, you're repeating that same kind of cycle, and by the end of the day, you also need to make enough money to sustain and run the business independently.
Sure. I think we are just running short of time. So okay. So I think Navaneeth answered it, but I'll just re-emphasize. I think the name of the game is engagement. As long as we were running the advertising business, we were all focused on reach, because when advertisers decide to allocate money, it's based on reach, and that becomes the critical metric. So everybody was chasing reach, search optimization, marketing, growth. I think when you look at a subscription business, you need to do a total rethink on what metrics matter, and I think engagement matters. Whether it is to do with acquisition, conversion, or retention, I think the differentiator is engagement. People who will purchase are the people who are engaged. People who will renew are the people who are engaged. If somebody is not consuming your content, he's not engaging with it, he will neither buy, or he'll be reluctant to buy, he'll be reluctant to renew. So I think when you want to make a transition from and I think it's true for everybody in digital space, that at the end of the day, and I have been a product manager, I've been an editor, I have carried some of these targets myself. I can divide and multiply page views. To give you an example, you do a story which is 300 words, it's still 1 page view. You divide it into 20 pages, it becomes 20 page views. You turn it into a photo gallery, it becomes 40 page views. You do it shorts, you get 50 page views. So it's divisible and multipliable, depending on how you want to play and what KPIs you are kind of driving. But the time a person has is 24 hours, it's limited. So what time is your consumer spending with you on your digital assets? I think that's the true measure of how loyal, how engaged, how much, because that's the currency that you're trading. When I offer my advertisers eyeballs with my consumers, it's the engagement time that I'm offering to them, right? More page views in the same engagement time means actually he's seeing your ad for a lesser duration of time, right? So the quality of engagement measured in terms of time, I think, is the most important, followed by frequency. Reach is a material, because if I have a reach of 200 million and 70% of that those users come to me once in a month with an average of 1.4 page views, right? The monetization value of that, even on the advertising scale, is very small. Of course, it gets me higher allocation of budgets because of the reach numbers that I say. But in terms of total contribution to my bottom line, it's hardly anything. So it doesn't make a difference. But if I do engagement right, and if I have millions of paying subscribers, I think advertisers will be willing to pay me a premium for that reach, because it's a filtered set of audience. 15 years ago, and we were discussing, I think I was discussing with somebody outside, somebody being on internet itself was a filter. So if you are on the internet, that means you had a device, a laptop or a phone, which was not easily affordable. You were paying 1,000 rupees for connectivity, which was expensive 15 years ago. Today it may not look that expensive, and it's not that expensive at all. So that was the filter of the SEC A-B definition of a user. So that was the filter. Today everybody has a phone. It's ubiquitous, right? And the consumption of people who are at the lower end of the pyramid is much higher than people at the higher end. They have ample time. So if you want time with premium audiences, then that, I think, is the core metric. And targeting that 2 million, 5 million, 10 million at the top is much more valuable than targeting the 100 million at the bottom. How many of you are actually selling shampoos in a sachet which is relevant to everybody? But if you are selling products which are high value, then you want to start at the top or the middle of the pyramid and not the bottom of the pyramid. So targeting relevant audiences, people who have the ability, propensity to pay is very important. And I think that's where subscribed audiences as a segment will make a lot of difference to advertisers. Because these are the audiences which frequent very often. So I have more data about them, richer data about them, right? I have built profiles and personas. I'll give you an example, for instance. We started going deep into education. And the idea of going into education was, one, it's a lucrative sector from an advertising perspective. But I think it helps me identify my audience in a life stage. So anybody who's coming to my education site, let's say we do results, and I get an audience, I tag him that this is a 10th standard student or a parent. Because that's the only two people who will come to a 10th standard board result page. Now with behavior, I am able to segregate and say, this is a student, this is the parent. Now I know if he's a student, this is what he's going to need next year, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that, and that journey is mapped out. Because probably, अगर वो 12th का result देखने आ रहा है तो he's continuing his education. तो graduation कर रहा है तो उसके, I can then start selling, you know, a Vidya Mandir course or a FitG course to him when he passes out from 10th. Post 12th, I can target, you know, engineering colleges or medical colleges or commerce college depending on what his preferences is. In between, I can target content to figure out what stream of subjects he's taken. You know, if he's reading more about options in science with engineering, etc., I know he's going in that direction. If he's reading content about opportunities in medicine or medical areas, I can target relevant advertisers to him. And then I can target fashion brands, lifestyle brands, so much more I can do with the audiences. So I think as publishers, when we kind of start thinking, you know, differently, and again, one of the challenges I think nobody mentioned here is, as print publishers, we are not seriously attracting young audiences. We are casually attracting young audiences, but not seriously attracting young audiences. And that's where education for us becomes very important, because that's a serious attempt to get your brand to a relevant audience of the future. So when we do education and we start engaging with students and start giving them content around education, because that is their need at that point of time, I am building a relationship which I'll monetize, you know, 10 years later. So, you know, you mentioned what is short term and what is long term. So, you know, you do certain things. We have monthly targets, we have daily targets on subscriptions. But we also know that this funnel is going to dry up. And we need to start building that funnel today. Because to get a new user in, get him engaged, get him hooked enough to pay for your content is not a journey which will happen over the next 2 weeks or 5 weeks or 10 weeks or 10 months. It's a 10-year journey. And you have to start working on it now, otherwise you'll have no business tomorrow. So I think that's it. Time's up. Thank you. If anybody has any questions, we are happy to take a couple of questions. Because there's no session, so I think we can take that liberty. Yeah, sure. Introduce yourself and ask the question. Somebody can pass the mic, please.
I am Murali Krishnan. Actually, I am a journalist. Actually, I am also a media tech entrepreneur. So my question is here for all, because you all from the print background and always, you know, having very good history of in journalism as well. You talk about the subscription revenue and all. From already subscription revenue for your brand is already, because all people are you know, subscribing your newspapers by paying money. So it won't be that much tedious when the digital entrepreneurs, those who are digital only news coming in, that will be scenario is entirely different. How you see that scenario as seeing as a digital entrepreneur, digital only news content, digital publishers? One thing, and the another one is that as you said, Sanjay said that ChatGPT and all other you know, Gemini co-pilots are giving out the information what they are searching for. Then there is no need for, you know, getting into the article more deeply, because in short, it gives all the information what the consumers need. So how we are going to face that kind of situation in future?
I'll answer the first part. I think the challenges of setting up afresh. So in our digital product depends quite heavily on our print reporters. So we have a large print reporting team which feeds into the digital. Digital has its own online opinion, online only opinion, and blogs and some other formats. But a large part of the content, especially the exclusive content, comes from print. So if you're going to be setting up a digital platform on your own, you'll need to set up a newsroom, which comes with attendant costs and attendant headaches also. So that's the first part. I think second part I will hand over.
Okay, maybe I'll attempt it. So I think I'll come to your first question. I'm not sure whether the question was about how we do it or whether it's about how you should do it. So
it's about consider yourself a digital only publisher because you get advertisement revenue. We can do cross advertisements and all pitch in the marketing, right? Yeah. So I am asking you, you are a seasoned journalist. Most of all you in the panel are seasoned journalists. So if you are starting a one digital only publisher, news publisher, then say how you go through this.
I think you have some models out there. You have the Deccan, you have the Morning Context, which have been digital only subscription based models, started with small teams. I think the key there is to focus on a small niche and build around that niche. So you see, we are large publishers, we cater to a very large audiences. Our ambitions are in millions. But if you're starting as a small digital only kind of a thing, you can't go a horizontal route. You have to take a vertical route. Take a deep vertical route, go deep into it, and I think you'll find enough audiences. And you will be able to charge a premium because a deep vertical, you are able to charge that kind of premium both on advertising side as well as on the subscription side. And I can give you an example. For instance, we had the economictimes.com, which was a horizontal. And then we launched almost 20 verticals. Right? We have auto, we have HR, we have CFO, we have CIO, we had brand equity. So we had 20 deep verticals, and the verticals charged 10x the ad revenue that the horizontal charged. Right? And they were able to kind of monetize through alternate. They would do a lot of events and IPs which were high value. So the strategy changes. If you want to do a pure digital kind of a play, go niche, build an expertise, and then I think money will follow. So it's not a this thing. You don't have to chase numbers, you have to chase value. That's the play. Your second question on how ChatGPT and others will impact, we can just future gaze and try to kind of extrapolate what is going to happen. So you see, the models will need fresh content to learn, right? Today, the arbitrage between a search engine and the publisher is, I give them content, they send me traffic, which we together monetize in a way. So, there's a compensation built in. But tomorrow, if they take my content, ingest it and produce content out of it and don't share any value back with me, then why should I share my content with anybody?
See, actually that's where the problem is there, because it is not picking up from your content. Sometimes, actually in search engine it will display our links, everything, it will give traffic to us, whatever the content is being searched, it will be giving, but it may, your story is being paywalled. Someone did the same story without paywall. If the story is being picked up by this kind of ChatGPT, Gemini or Copilot, anything, then it is published. Then when the people are searching in this kind of thing, any items, then they got the content, then there won't be any necessary to come back to our credible news, right?
Pilferage will always be there. You can't prevent that pilferage. There's no lock which cannot be broken. It depends on, how much, what kind of a lock you put and what is the value behind the lock. So I think that's one separate conversation. But because these are legal entities dealing with each other, it's copyrighted content. Ultimately, a framework will evolve where compensation will have to be there. Otherwise, let's assume a doomsday scenario. We are not compensated. We don't make money. What will happen? We'll shut down, right? अब सोने की अंडे देने वाली मुर्गी मर जाएगी तो आप क्या करोगे? So I think somewhere the people who are creating these engines recognize the value that content creators create and they share value. Look at YouTube as a platform, right? There are thousands and millions of content creators putting content there and they earn a rev share from YouTube on that. So unless there's a give and take, right, the ecosystem cannot survive. It cannot be I only take and I'll not give back. That ecosystem will never survive. So I think that's the answer. Any other questions?
In extension to that, your content is being used by search engines, Google, and even aggregators. They enjoy your traffic, your content created by you. They take larger part, if I'm not wrong, and they're sharing a lead minimum. And future, as Mr. Sanjay said, it is going to be used by ChatGPT also. So if ChatGPT is going to deliver content based on the learning from what it is being provided by the credible platforms like you, what is stopping the Indian publication fraternity to put a strong fight with whomever it is? Because if you look at Europe, it's not the case. Take the case of France government, which stood strongly with their country's publication. I think our country's newspaper or the news media is having a very strong association for various other reasons, even for advertising, like INS, accredited agency system and all that. But when it comes to content, which is your future, much needed for monetization in future, a strong representation is not made yet. Why and what is stopping that?
I don't think that's the case. I think we are in constant dialogue with all stakeholders, both the players in the market and the government. And we have.
I don't see the result outcome like the way it is happening in Europe or France.
These things take time. They don't happen abruptly. And I think you mentioned, news aggregators. So we have commercial relationships with them where we get compensated for content. They cannot take my content without my will. And I think when two parties come together and negotiate a price, it's called a commercial arrangement, and it's a give and take which is acceptable to both parties. So as you rightly said, if it is not viable to me, I will stop giving content to them. So I think today, I believe we are getting fairly compensated. And till a while back, most of our content was available for free. So if somebody is syndicating it and paying me money for it, for me that was a good money. Maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, when 50% of my content is behind a paywall, that amount will have to be renegotiated, because the value I generate from that content from paid subscribers will be much more than what I'm generating from syndication. But today, that's not the case. And there have been places where we have blocked our premium content from going into our syndication feeds, which are in the public domain. So I think all of us understand our commercial interest and take decisions which protect those interests. Sometimes there are contractual obligations which are done earlier and which probably last for a few years before they can be renegotiated. But I think all of us know that we are running a tight ship and we need to maximize the revenues to the extent possible.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions can be taken up off stage. Thank you so much for your invaluable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, one huge round of applause, please.